Hey, what's going on, everybody? Thanks for swinging by. I really do appreciate it. As always, it is a pleasure to have you guys with us on another Keep Calm and Carry. We have a very special guest. This is someone who I've been hoping to get onto the channel for quite some time. Big fan of their channel. And to be honest with you, I actually ended up subscribing their channel because of my dad. And we'll get into that more here in just a bit. But again, I wanted to say thank you to everybody spending their very cold Monday evening with us. At least it's very cold where I live. It's so cold, in fact, that my water lines are frozen. So if you hear any trickling noises in the background, I'm trying to dethaw my my water lines on the sink. So you'll just have to bear with it. But happy Monday to everybody. And yeah, we'll swing on over to the chat room to say hi to everybody. Scott75's in there first. The Grim Reaper, Shocker Shooter, LFG are jumping in there first and foremost. Good to see you guys, as always. Mandatory Carrier, what's going on, man? He says, no shocker, and no, you don't get to sporterize a Garand in general. That's blasphemy. Is it? We'll talk about that tonight. Let's see. Camel Toe, what's going on? How you doing? The Masman Mechanic, good to see you. Hey Duds, Dickie B, what's up, man? Alan Powell, good to see you guys. I really do appreciate it. And May, yeah, what's going on, May? All right, so I'm not going to draw this out. We've got a lot of things that we're going to cover tonight, I think. And again, as I've said, I have been very eager to have our guest on to the show tonight. If you guys don't already know, I've got all of their information down in the description below. So please swing by, check them out, subscribe if you haven't. We do have the walking encyclopedia of historical firearms, and that is Othias from C&Rsenal. What's going on? How you doing?
Howdy. I would not say that I'm a walking encyclopedia, more like a reading one.
I don't know. Just to watch your videos is mind-boggling to me, to see how you are able to put long-form content together with as much information as you put into it. That's just absolutely amazing to me.
Yeah, but a lot of that process is because the show kind of came out of my inability to remember what the heck I was doing. So it's really funny. I get emails all the time, like, way back in episode like 40, you did this thing. What does that mean? And I'm like, who was that guy? I don't even, like, it's gone. Like, and the whole reason I constructed them that way is because it evolved from my own note taking, because I would carry a notebook to gun shows to remind myself the stuff that I was supposed to know about things. So I became really good at sort of like putting things in an order that I could read quickly and understand. And so eventually I extrapolated that into like a full course on whatever firearm. And then once the episode's done, I retain it for however many weeks, and then it starts to filter, unfortunately, out. Luckily, if enough sticks that I can do sort of comparisons now, but I'm really not, the video version of me is better than the real life version of me.
Isn't that how it always goes, though?
Yeah. That guy had a script. The one that you're meeting at the gun show is like hungry or maybe even ate like a really bad corn dog a half hour ago. So
yeah, I understand. I mean, if you meet me in real life, you're not going to get this lovely face. You know, I'm usually in sweats and my hair's all messed up, and I just have I haven't brushed my teeth in 3 days or something like that. Not really, but anyway. So for those of us that may not be familiar with your channel, your partner in crime, please tell us a little bit more about C&Rsenal and kind of where it derived from.
Yeah, so we're a historical firearms series. We do a video we do our main show, which is called Primer, every other week. And Primer is a hard look at a specific historical firearm. And we started the series in World War I, and we're still there, actually, for the most part. We've now branched out a little bit, and we're starting a Colt percussion cap series that is intermingled with Primer now. But most of the content is going to be, like, the broad majority is World War I. And it's turned out to be a pretty good place to start because it's been a pretty critical area for understanding the transition into smokeless powder and repeating arms. And I think it ultimately has worked out to give us a very good sort of base understanding. And then when we move into later periods, people will be able to figure out things a lot faster. But what we do is we present the sort of historical context as to why a firearm was developed, how it was developed, who developed it. We have an animator now that does 3D animations of each firearm design so that you can see, in detail expressly what is happening in that firearm. I've had a lot of people say it's almost like a college course in a way on firearms design and development. But we are the show that if you own a firearm, you hope we've done an episode on it, I guess is the way to think of it, because it's going to save you a lot in terms of having to pay for expensive books or something like that.
Yeah, absolutely. And right off the bat, LFG here, he's jumping in and just wanting to understand where your passion for historical military hardware leading up to and during World War I, where does all that come from? Is that just something that is just always been there with you, or is it slowly kind of meticulated over the years?
No, I have a technology background, and so I was an early adopter of the internet. I was an early adopter of a lot of technologies, and then now, as an older person, I'm becoming more of a Luddite. But when I was working for a technology firm, and one of my coworkers had decided to have like a little vacation out on the family farm property, and I was in my 20s, and we went out, and he had a Mosin M38 carbine and a pair of Sony earbuds for hearing protection. And that was the first firearm I had ever shot. And that rung my bell pretty good. And a week later, he came to me and he said that his girlfriend at the time didn't really care for the firearms, or some other thing was going on. And he wanted to sell them. So I was like, well, that thing was cool. I'll take it. So I bought my little M38 Mosin. And I started looking online to understand more about it. And at that time, I believe 7.62x54R net was up. I believe it was up and running. But there wasn't, even in that site, it was good at identifying differences between Mosins, but it didn't tell you why. And, when I took the gun apart and I saw how it was assembled versus other guns, I started having questions operationally about, like, why would they do this versus that? Obviously, being a Mosin, it had certain issues, that, as all Mosins do at times in the surplus market. And I got really curious. I was like, why would you do this? Why wouldn't you do that? And when I went looking for those answers, I never found them. As a matter of fact, with the Mosin specifically, even after starting to write my own articles, after doing my own photography, after eventually doing my own video series, it wasn't until we were well into the video series that somebody finally released a very well-researched Russian language Cyrillic text book on the Mosin. And I managed to get that in and have it translated. And working out of that book, I finally got my answers for why the Mosin is such a weird firearm. But it's that sort of inquisitiveness where I was like, coming from a technology background, I'm used to the internet being able to provide me the best information. And yet, when I wandered into the internet of guns, I was finding the worst information. Even Forgotten Weapons hadn't really gotten going at that time. And then it sort of came up as I was switching into article writing. And then eventually I followed on into video. And I wish I could say that, I had followed along behind Ian, but honestly, I wasn't even watching Forgotten Weapons because I had already discounted YouTube, or really earlier video services before YouTube even. I discounted them as being useless for firearms knowledge because all video for firearms knowledge had been frankly poor, full of misinformation and myth. So when I started mine, I wanted to sort of to stop that, to find a way to approach it more in depth.
And that's interesting, especially talking about some of the books that you had that had been translated. I know that not obviously this past year, or this year rather, but last year, 2020 at SHOT Show, I got to spend an evening with a really cool person in the firearms industry, and he's known as the godfather of the American AK. I've talked to him several times, had him on the show, and he has this book that outlines every possible variation of the AK.
Right.
And it shows pictures of, okay, here's 10 different magazines, and this is why this one's different from that one, and so on and so forth. And then it goes to receivers and handguards. I mean, every minute piece breaks it all down. Problem is, it's in Russian. And Google Translate.
I believe I know who we're talking about. I believe I have that book, and I am struggling with it, but it's going to get there one day.
Yeah. So we all got into our conversation, and we just so happened to have one of his friends from Russia over, and he said that he's actually trying to get the author to translate it, or find a way to get it translated into English, because there's such an outcry for information from obviously from over there about the AK, especially with as much as the AK has kind of flourished in the last, I would say, probably 10 years. Yeah. So
if he knows somebody, if he needs somebody to talk to, we have a gentleman. To be honest with you, I don't speak Russian, so I have no way of double checking. But there's a gentleman that's in our Discord that has taken on doing a Russian language version of C&Rsenal with dubs. And there is actually a Russian language version of C&Rsenal out there now that's slowly growing, because he came to me and got the permission for blah, blah, blah. And I don't know. He's certainly learning a lot about commenting on firearms. So if you ever need me to hook him up, let me know.
Absolutely.
I don't know how to measure his skill. That would be probably up to the Russians to decide, but he's trying. So
yeah, that's all it really matters. It's all that really matters. I do see over in the chat room, we have a number of people commenting on the weather. It is extremely cold here in the central part of the United States. I'm flipping over to AccuWeather just to see what it's ambient temperature. Well, the temperature, the actual temperature is -3, real feel -18 with wind chill. And tonight it's going to drop down to -16. So welcome to Kansas. I think here in the next couple of days.
To be fair, that sounds like all my experiences with Kansas. So.
We're going to be back up to 50 here in just a few days. So believe it or not, hopefully none of my pipes will burst before then.
I think the lowest we reached was like 41.
Yeah.
We're deep hot south.
Yeah, and more power to you guys. I mean, but you guys get hammered in the summertime, right? With the humidity.
Yeah, we actually on the Discord we have a challenge going, and I am undefeated yet, including people in Florida. So I don't know how I've been undefeated yet. But Charleston has there's a particular weather graph that talks about humidity levels and things like that, and it has a intolerable, uncomfortable, whatever. There's literally a meter that says miserable. And we're the only ones I've been able to find that have a miserable rating at over, and the average miserable rating in the summer is over 50%. Wow. So greater than half the days of the summer are miserable.
You can keep it. I cannot do humidity. Kansas does get fairly humid, but not as bad as when you can see the moisture in the air.
I have gills, so it's one of those things. I've actually wanted to move out west in some regards, but then every time I've gone out there, I have become so sick, and not just like a cold or something, but just like this inability to breathe for like by day 3, everything's cracked and bleeding. Like I have to be like submerged everywhere I go. So the humidity and I are doing fine. Yeah.
And that's how I am when I go out to SHOT Show, even though it's in January. My knuckles are split by the end of the week. My lips are all chapped up and cracked and bleeding and everything else. And it's horrible. Schmidt jumping in there and saying Swamp King Othias.
Yeah. This is my swamp. I'm Shrek down here.
So we talked about your passion and where your historical kind of interest has derived from. You have a partner in crime, yes. May. I believe she's jumping in the chat there.
No, she's ruining your chat room. Yes,
that's fine. Let her do it. To your knowledge, I don't necessarily want to speak for her or whatever, but to your knowledge, where did her interest kind of derive from? Because you don't see too many women interested in antique firearms, So
May grew up in a Southern family, so firearms were just a tool. She had been pheasant hunting, duck hunting, those sorts of things. I think even deer and things. I'd have to have her speak for herself, but she just grew up with them as another utility, the same as you would have like a four-wheeler or anything else. And then, goes off to school, does other things, doesn't really need to have one around necessarily because she's not doing any of those exercises. And then when I started the program, I realized that I was the only one that knew how to run the cameras and interpret the cameras and focus the cameras. And then I also realized that I don't provide the right scale for the firearms because at 6'1", I'm not like the tallest. Nowadays 6'1's not an unusual height, but in World War I that would have been obscene.
Oh yeah.
So these firearms are really designed for people smaller than I am, and yet they are very large firearms. So when I hold up something like a Lebel, it doesn't seem that ungainly, But if you hand it to someone like May, who's right smack in the middle of sort of the average height, and it changed a little bit, European heights weren't the same as American heights and things, but she's right in that range, that sort of 5'8"-ish, 5'9"-ish range, that really told the story of the size of these things and how they were really used. Her finger length is probably more correct, if not. Her hand's definitely not as beefy as a male hand from back then, but she gives an idea of the proportions of the firearm. And also, she was someone who wasn't me. I could run the cameras and she could just shoot the gun. We were worried about her being more of a sort of novice user. She shot for hunting purposes, but not any sort of competition or military background. But to be fair, you're talking about an era of massive sort of recruitments and things like that. So most people were poorly educated on their firearms. So it kind of worked out. It was like, look, we'll just give the gun to a novice. It's supposed to be infantry proof. We'll see how it goes. Now, of course, her experience has grown since then, but that's really how she got started with us, is just by not being me and being the right size on camera.
Yeah, absolutely. Because, if I remember correctly, I think I heard a statistic just from the soldiers who were enlisting in World War II. The average was something like 5'7", 5'8", and 150 pounds or something like that.
Yeah, it depends on the army. German army would have been a little smaller because they were having some, privation issues before going into the war. Americans tended to be a little bit bigger because we were eating okay, but not perfect. Economic depression here too. It's a lot of factors. It's interesting how juvenile diet really affects the average height of a population.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Especially with us, like you mentioned, coming out of the Depression. You had individuals like Audie Murphy, who he was 5'3", I think, and something like 120 pounds. Yeah. He was too small to join the Marines. He was too small to join the Airborne. So he just went standard infantry guy. And then,
to be fair, they talk about size like that, but if I'm being shot at, I want to be the smallest size I could possibly be. Like, I don't want to be a big guy being shot at.
That is 100% accurate. You want to be lower than your belt buckle when you have to hit the dirt. I can tell you that for a fact. Wanted to take a break to get back to the chat room here just a second. I did see, I'm not sure where it ran off to, but I did see someone asking if there was a Nambo behind you.
A Nambo?
Yeah.
On the table behind me?
Yeah.
No, I've got a couple. Tonight's episode, if anybody wants to run it for themselves, is a Webley Fosbury. And then there's a Glicentian Brixia sitting there because I was trying to fix the Brixia. And then this was a find over the weekend, but we managed to get a hold of a Campo Giro. So that's another early semi-automatic that we'll get to talk about very soon. This is a Spanish design.
Very nice.
Actually, much larger than, this is the problem with scale. This thing is probably 2 inches longer than your average 1911. Like, this is a big handgun.
Yeah.
So,
now, you posted that on Instagram, didn't you?
Yeah, I did.
Yeah. Yeah. I posted on there when you popped up, when that popped up in my feed. Just the way it was, I think the slide was locked back. in one of the pictures. It looked like it had like an RMR cut for
Oh,
like a Glock
no,
or something.
you're thinking of the Steyr Hahn.
Oh, is that what it is? Okay.
Yeah. I did the Colt 1902 and the Roth Krinka having the Steyr Hahn as a baby.
Yeah.
Yeah, it did look like a RMR cut.
And then I do have Mr. FNH jumping in and asking, and this kind of leads into the next question that we were going to talk about, which is basically what the live stream's all about when it comes to surplus military firearms, is this concept of sporterizing, or what a lot of people call Bubba-ing I said FUD, but Bubba-ing their firearms. I always have people ask me. I bought and see, it would have been August 2019. I bought my very first, I would say, historical firearm, which is SKS. It's, I mean, whatever you want to call it. But everyone asking me about, well, are you going to put a tactical stock on that? Are you going to get to where it'll accept 30-round magazines and stuff like that?
Yeah, you got to get your high-speed, low-drag SKS.
Yes. Does that hurt your soul when someone does that?
People always have so sporterization is just a thing. It's always happened. I will say I have seen a lot of very rare guns. Like I have, I've been looking for years for a particular carbine, and I found one, and it was sporterized, and I'd have paid $3,000-4,000 to get the dang gun as it was. Once it's sporterized, it's worth $250, you know? And the reason for that is just scarcity, right? Or some sort of value, some sort of inherent value plus scarcity. But you always run that risk, because a lot of the stuff you do, you can't undo. And I'm certainly more of a fan of people doing things that are interchangeable. So people will do kits that they can remove. They drift a pin, they put in this other thing. The problem I have with that as well, though, is I never seem to find a sporterized gun with a baggie of its original parts, because when Grandpa dies, the parts just get thrown out. You know, it just every time. So the guns almost never stay together once you do that. It's your property. You can do whatever you want with it. You know, I certainly have an American mentality about owning things. However, if you feel that you are a custodian of history, don't mess with it. Now, that doesn't mean don't prevent rust. That doesn't mean don't prevent decay. You know, the natural state of a firearm is to eventually rust away to nothing if you don't take care of it. So there are some things that you will have to do that will make it less original. I get that. But, yeah, I have an argument against, like, how far you go for patina versus the gun is degrading, you know? But that's a separate conversation from just swapping everything out just for funsies. Again, you're right. You could do, if it's your money and your property, do whatever you want. But I just don't think it's advisable. Like you can usually find a firearm that does what you want, or the current market is full of guns that are not actually historical guns. You know, we have tons of, pretty much since the sort of full auto infantry rifle became a thing, we tend to have firearms that are parts kit builds here in the U.S., where the receiver is U.S. built. It's built to be semi-automatic only on a gun that's never been a semi-automatic gun, like AK kits and things like that. And so the SKS is probably a perfect definition of that, because the SKS is a semi-automatic rifle from its default. You can take that as a military arm, leave it in original condition, and you're well within the law, and you can enjoy it forever, and it's a historical piece. If you do that to an AK-47, well, it's already an American-made receiver for a commercial market. It's not the original military firearm. So you're really not doing the same sort of damage if you start playing with your AK, because it was the receiver itself, again, was made to be played with. So I think there's just a difference in sort of the coloring and tone of these things. And if you want to be a historian to your own collection, go ahead.
Yeah, absolutely. It's an oddity, because a lot of people don't realize that sporterizing a firearm has been going on for a very, very long time. I mean, with my generation, what I grew up and started seeing was obviously the SKSs. That was a big thing to do. But there has been a number of bringbacks from World War I or World War II that ended up being sporterized. Like K98s. K98s have been sporterized in the 50s and 60s pretty thoroughly.
Right.
So yeah. So
to be fair to those people, at the time those were done, that was an economic factor. Those firearms were inexpensive compared to a good hunting rifle, and so you would try to convert one into a good hunting rifle. So you can't really argue with that. That was a choice of economy.
Mhm.
The thing I have now is we're really moving out of that. There are I cannot really think of a milsurp that is currently so affordable as to be less valuable than a commercial firearm that would already have those features.
Mhm.
Now we've moved out of that. We
Yeah.
don't really have surplus like that anymore.
Absolutely. I mean, just the stories that I've seen people buying SKSs, and I keep on referring back to the SKS because that's what's has been the most noticeable milsurp rifle in my lifetime. Not that there isn't others, but that's the one that I just kind of gravitate to because that's the one I recognize the most. But I know that people were able to buy those for, super, super cheap. And I ended up getting a hand selected one and it was like almost $400.
Nice.
When I was stationed at Fort Campbell, there was a local gun shop that had Mosin Nagants, and you could buy the rifle, the bayonet, the cleaning kit, the bandolier, the entire issue.
Right. They were trying to unload all the extra junk.
Yes, and you could get one for like $99.
Mm-hmm.
And I was just like, nah, I'm not going to do that. And now I'm kind of kicking myself in the butt. I do want to say a special thank you to Fudd Busters. He jumped in there. And he's like, hey, what's popping, my babies? Thank you so much for contributing. I really do appreciate it.
Constant attention.
That's okay. That's okay. So do you own any sporterized rifles, or have you worked extremely hard to convert any that you've bought back to the original states?
I have a few that are in need of repair. You know what I mean? Like I have them in the sense that they are spare parts for other things, or that they are getting into a restoration job of some sort. But in terms of owning something that was sporterized and keeping it sporterized, it's not really my bag. I think I see the potential of what it should have been. That doesn't mean that I don't put value on period sport rifles. So like Mannlicher-Schönauers, there tended to be a lot of those that were commercially made that are beautiful guns. And I wouldn't mind owning one, but then you run into that problem of them being more expensive than even the milsurp ones, which is why so many Schönauers were sporterized, I don't, I can't really afford to have the cool stuff unless it in some way works with the show. And then I can sort of self-justify to own it long enough to do the show and then to have on hand for some more comparison, and then maybe do I'm working on having enough photos and other things in place to do some book work later on. And at the end of the day, I'll still have to sell a bunch of stuff because I can only own so much. And then a lot of what you're seeing behind me is on loan anyway. Like we take a lot actually right now, a fair bit I do own, in the sense that a lot of them are shotguns. That was the one thing that we bought outright. But other than the shotguns, it's mostly loaners. And the shotguns are specifically because they were very depressed in the market, very inexpensive, and we wanted to try to do a chronological project to see if we could float that or not. And eventually they'll get cashed out too. But C&Rsenal is not a. We have a lot of supporters, but it is not. I'm not a wealthy man. Like I work out of a 10 by 10 room in a house that's like fewer than 1,100 square feet, and I just try to make it work.
I'm very familiar with that. That's why most of my videos I'm literally filming from this angle right here. I mean, I have everything behind me just exactly the same. Got the blue light going on, and I'm standing in my kitchen filming my living room. I could convert my my front room if I needed to, and I probably will at some point. But we'll see what happens in the future for sure.
Yeah.
So definitely understand the pain of trying to put something together, not only for visual sake, but also the content material as well. Because looking at my bank account right now, I'm just like, oh my goodness, I can't believe I just spent that much money on something, and then I have all this inventory to do your comparison stuff. And then eventually, I've got right now I've got 3 different pistols that I'm going to be utilizing for comparison videos. And then eventually I'll unload those pistols, but it's like, oh, man.
Yeah, you have to carry them while you're working with them.
Exactly right. And people kind of expect you to kind of hold the item with you, even though you've already done a video on it, and you could just sit and talk about it and splice in.
No, to do good video work, you need to be able to show what you are saying, and it often helps to have. There's so many pieces that I've sent back because they were on loan and they have to go home. And then 9 months later, I'm like, oh my God, I wish that was here right now because I could get this extra thing. But it's such a hassle to get it back and forth.
Yep.
So, especially now, shipping is nightmarish right now. We've had some struggles with loaners because of the shipping, because I'm so. Our expenses for shipping have gone way up because I just will not ship anything outside of a hard case at this point. Like the UPS, like the USPS nightmares have been stacking so high that it's like, put it in a hard case or I won't accept it, And I'll pay the shipping, I'll pay the case if I have to, but just, everything needs to be protected when shipping now. It's a nightmare.
Yeah. You just did you just put out a video talking about your PO box changing and all the issues that you had.
Yeah, we had stuff just stolen out of it in the post office. Like, just I don't want to lay too much blame. Like, I don't know things for sure, but boy, is it weird when you're multiple times you had stuff just disappear from your own supposedly locked PO box.
Yeah,
like your options are somebody there is doing it, or somebody there continually doesn't lock the entire. You know how the entire bank of whatever can be keyed out. When you walk in and that's open, and you're like, why is this hanging open? They're like, moo. And you're like, you guys are here. It's the middle of the day. You guys are here. It's hanging open. Nobody noticed this. Like, it's nightmarish.
So Matt's jumping back in with another super chat for $2. He says, "Don't let Othias fool you. He's an oil baron."
I make my own oil.
Yeah,
scrape it out of my beard.
Hold on 1 second here.
Okay. Hi, everybody. I'm your host now. So,
yeah, right.
That was 1 second. I'm sorry.
My daughter was jumping in. She's got the midnight snackish concerns, even though that she already had dinner. But what was that? What did you say?
A family comes first. That's fair.
Oh yeah. I just the microwaves right there. You guys would hear the beeping and everything else. So I just
he's trying to save you all from being hungry from
the because I don't feed her at all. No, not at all. So
do I need to stall for like how long's the microwave?
No, we're good. We're good. I told her just to hold off for just a little bit until we can get done with this, and then I'll get her taken care of.
I mean, I can find a story for what does she need? 2 minutes?
Yeah, it'd probably be about 3 minutes, but we'll like I said, we'll take care of it after.
Yeah, I'll try. I'll do my best. I'm a team player.
Fudbuster says, "Show us the oil."
Just comb it out. Just wring it until I can get. Actually, that's funny. Is my hair doesn't get that oily that fast. Well, my head, if I let it go for 2 days,
See, mine, I have to use beard oil. Otherwise, yeah, because otherwise my my cheeks start to get dried out, and then I got the dandruff going on. So
no, what I do is when I wake up, I've got the drool in the morning, and I just smear it to the other side and work it in, and then that's me. I'm good for the day.
There you go.
Yeah.
Okay, so you talked about Premiere, and that it's focusing mainly on World War I, but you're starting to branch out a little bit more.
Right.
Is there the intent to move on to say like World War II, Korea, Vietnam?
I hate you. No, never a fixed list again. We should not exist. The primary series should not have worked as long as it did. And to be honest with you, if it weren't for the COVID response, I think we would have been able to pull off even more, which is incredible. Because working from a diminishing fixed list of firearms is so much harder than you would expect. Because you have to find this gun, not any gun. you imagine you do your video producing. It's like, okay, can I get a hold of these? No, all right, I'll go to the next thing. But at some point, I have to go back and get all the things I didn't get a hold of, or surrender. And we've really only suffered in the sense that I finally was unable to turn up a number of machine guns that I really want to talk about that are scarce even in the collector's market. I was going to solve that problem by at least having episodes on them without firing them. And that was supposed to happen last year during 2020. There's supposed to be a number of those where we were going to go out to Springfield and down to like Knight and out to Cody and things like that. And COVID just wiped all that off the face of the earth, because especially museums are already sensitive to lots of, like, they don't really have, they're not structured to have somebody wandering through there touching and photographing and talking about anything all the time. And then trying to do that on top of having all the COVID issues, it's almost impossible to schedule for. And so that became a nightmare of 2020, is that suddenly I was thrust into not being able to, I was supposed to have 6 episodes, which is a fair bit of my year, when we're only producing one every other week. I was supposed to have at least 6 episodes planned in museums, and then they all got scrubbed within 2 months of me filming them. And I had to go find 6 more things to talk about. So we started talking about neutral firearms. So we did like the Krag Jorgensens in Norway and Denmark. We did, Swedish rifles, things like that. But that was a struggle, because it's just like all of a sudden, like this big thing I had saved up and planned for just fell flat on its face. The other issue is we get yelled at for the 1911 episode that we haven't done yet. We still haven't covered the Colt 1911, and the reason for that is
slacker.
Do you know what a 1911 is? Does everybody knows what the 1911 is? If I do a regular primer on the 1911, some people are going to feel a little bit smarter about it, but that's going to be about it. Most people understand that story very well. So in order to talk about it, I think I need to be able to do something special. We have a relationship with Springfield. We have relationships with collectors. I wanted to get my hands on the prototypes. I wanted to get my hands, on some of the equipment to manufacture them. I wanted to go up to Springfield and interview their current curator. I wanted to have an actual episode that went above and beyond anything that we've done before, so that we could, when we talk about a Dutch rifle, to the degree of which people understand a 1911 today, that's above and beyond for a Dutch rifle, because people don't know a lot about them. If I'm dealing with a gun everybody already knows, I better say something novel. I better get deep into it. And so that was supposed to be this year too. I was supposed to go up there and work with the actual. I have handled the gun that competed in the trials. I would like to handle it on camera. You know what I mean? I've handled the Savage that failed the trials. I would like to handle it on camera. I've seen prototype stamp steel 1911s. I would like to talk about them on camera. I want to put that out there for everybody to enjoy. I have to make it happen now in a COVID environment, which is very difficult. We've actually changed our plan for the 1911 episode entirely. It's not only it's not only extremely high in cost, it's also very hard to do an opportunity, and I can't really explain it better than that, because it's like Heisenberg's. If I tell you what I'm trying to do, I will shoot myself in the foot, because somebody else will then try to do it's a thing. Yeah. Collectors are weird. If you remind them to buy something, they will buy something, and then I will shoot myself in the foot. So I'm just not going to go down that road.
Well, I mean, maybe you should just do a 1911 episode where it follows the same format as all your other videos, but instead of the historical background, it's all lies. Yeah, just like the complete fun lore, the absolute untruth of the 1911, and just repeat every horrible garbage thing that's ever been said about it. That'd be kind of fun, actually. Yeah, I bet that I'm pretty sure you would gain so many subscribers just from that one video that you'd surpass Forgotten Weapons. I had a plan to do the 1911 episode just after April of last year. And the literal plan was to release the 1911 episode as hot garbage. Like, just come out and be like, 2 world wars, stopping power. And just and call it like a 20-minute long episode on April 1st. And just watch everybody lose their minds. And then the next day that was a proper episode, have the initial 1911. Like, that was the big plan. I never got to do that. Garan Thumb, he did a video, and I don't remember the nomenclature of the rifle, but it was basically the rifle from the Halo video game, right? And people like legit thought it was a real thing, mm-hmm. And he dropped it on obviously April 1st. So, and it was done completely in his normal format and everything. It was pretty awesome. So Coyote Brownish dropped in the $2 super chat. Thank you so much. He says, ask Othias about the honey mustard barbecue sauce.
Oh, no. There's no such thing as honey mustard barbecue sauce.
Is there not?
It's this thing that they invented so that Yankees would eat the barbecue sauce, and then it became a thing, and now it's all you can find. It's not supposed to be honey mustard. It's supposed to be mustard.
So, I mean,
I live in a state where 3/4 of all people were not born here, which is fine. Except they've completely diluted the original culture. And one of the original cultures was very specific to South Carolina, especially the lower South Carolina, was a mustard-based barbecue sauce. It's sort of German in origin. It's tart. It's not sweet. It's good. And so, appeasing the tourist, which probably came out of my town, Charleston, you tourist hungry, they started making honey mustard, which is sweet. And now every time somebody thinks of mustard barbecue sauce, they think honey mustard, like the kind you get at McDonald's or whatever. And it's garbage.
I don't know. We have some pretty good barbecue sauce out here in Kansas City. So,
Mm-hmm. Okay.
KC Masterpiece,
Yeah, I've only eaten at 7 of your horrible restaurants that are not anywhere near as good as traditional Carolina mustard. So
I don't know. I mean, KC barbecue is better than any other barbecue there is. Period.
You guys should travel more.
That is true.
Y'all are the only Westerners trying to play in the Southern barbecue fight. You might want to watch out.
I don't know. It's pretty good. You come up here and go to Arthur Bryant's. I don't know.
I've been.
Oh yeah. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Have you been to Arthur Bryant's?
Yeah, they should teach them how to cook a pig.
I will say the last time that I was there, I had their burnt ends, and I was severely let down.
To be fair, it's legacy brands don't do as well. The best barbecue I had was Milsurp Mike took me, and now I can't remember the restaurant. But the problem was it was more hybridized with almost like a Texas style. And here in Carolina, I'll admit, the place that has the #1 best mustard sauce is the worst pork because they've lost the ability to do the pig. And then the place that does the best pork has honey mustard barbecue sauce. So I literally have to go to the upstate, buy the mustard sauce, bring it back with me. And I got into a fight with a manager at this place because I was pouring this other bottle on his stuff. And he's like, what's that? And I was like, mustard sauce. He's like, we have mustard sauce. And I said, you have honey mustard. You're a damn Yankee. And like, he got very mad at me. And I said, well, where are you from? And he didn't want to tell me. And so I was like, yeah, okay, I'm going to put the mustard sauce on the pig. So
it's interesting you're bringing up Yankees and stuff like that because my dad's in the chat. He can verify this story.
Okay.
We went to Mississippi.
Okay.
To see some distant relatives, and we went back into the way back freaking podunk BFE backwoods to a catfish shack.
Okay.
I mean, it's like the only thing around for miles.
Right. And they're noodling.
Yeah. Right.
Okay.
And we had some fried catfish. It was good. Very good. And my dad goes to pay the bill, and he pulls out a $50 bill. And the lady says, we can't accept that. And he's like, oh, I give you smaller bills, but I don't know if I have enough to cover that. He's just confused. He's befuddled. He couldn't understand why they wouldn't take his money. And then they finally said it was because Grant was on the bill. He was able to scrape up enough of the money, I think, between him and my stepmother to go ahead and pay the bill without giving them a $50 bill. And then we leave, and Janet, my stepmother, she was asking, well, what was the problem? He tells us the story, and my brother and I are just like, is this a thing?
I would love that. I'm gonna start doing that. No, oh god, so funny. My father started a bar fight back in the day. Like, he was much older than me, so he was in what became the Mecca, the redneck Riviera of Myrtle Beach. But this is back when it was a bedroom community, and an air base. And oh god, it must have been like the '60s. I don't know. It was a long time ago. he apparently got into a fight because he's from Pennsylvania, and he managed to stand up on a bar in the middle of this Deep South bar, or stand up on the table in Deep South bar, and he yelled out, "Save your Confederate money, boys!" And everybody hoorah'd, and he said, "Because the South's going to get whipped again," and it just broke into a melee, and he was so happy with the results. Like, it's so funny.
Oh my goodness. A couple other questions coming in from the live chat. Not sure if you're an expert in this area, but let's see. Let me back up. First question is it safe to fire commercial ammo in an M1 Garand? The CMP says yes if it's under 180 grain, but the internet seems to argue both ways. Really wish someone could clarify. I don't know if this is something that you have any expertise in.
The short answer is it depends. It's awful to tell you, but like I have an M1 Garand that has I can't think of now. The gas tube is oversized. It's overboard now, so I can shoot whatever I want because if I hot load the crap out of it, it barely strokes because somebody already did that damage. You know, it's going to depend on your rifle and fitment. What you're really looking for if you're trying to preserve a historical rifle anyway is on any semi-automatic, you want to get it to the point that it cycles reliably, barely, and that's going to preserve it for as long as possible. If you're using it, as a weapon, then you're going to want to overgas it a little bit so it runs reliably. But just know that eventually all semi-automatics eventually beat themselves to death anyway. Like all wear is wear. It's just how much are you accelerating that wear. The problem people are having is specifically in the Garand market. You're playing the game of buying commercial ammo. The world I'm in, we hand load to the gun per episode because that's the way to preserve them. So if you're thinking pure preservation, you're going to have to hand load to that gun every time. Mm-hmm. If you're thinking in terms of what's just not going to beat the crap out of it, go with the recommended lowest levels that you can get that cycle it reliably. Nowadays, the good thing I will say is nowadays cell phones tend to almost always have a high-speed function, like almost every new cell phone. Mm-hmm. Film it with a high speed and see how much stroke you're getting out of it. That's a very easy way to check a gas operated system and make sure that you're not beating the crap out of it. You can see what it's doing now, which is very helpful for preserving these things.
That's actually a very great idea. I hadn't even thought about that.
Also for Garands, I believe they sell adjustable gas plugs now. So, find a way to store your gas plug. It might even fit in the bud trap if I think about it. But if you can store it on the rifle, that's always best. But for Garands, you can get adjustable gas ports where it's like a Allen key screw, and you can just put whatever ammo in there, walk that screw out, and just kind of fire around, tighten it down, fire around, tighten it down until it runs reliably, and then lock it out, and that's your setting for that ammo, and that gives you a little more flexibility as well.
So to pour some fuel in the fire here, is it Garand or is it Garand? How do you pronounce it correctly?
I think either one's acceptable at this point because what happened is in the U.S. nomenclature at the time, they would have said Garand. That's just how they were exposed to it. That's how it proliferated. So, World War II GI is probably going to say, Garand. But the man's name was Garand. So I tend to say Garand because that was the way he pronounced his own name. But I don't think he was – I haven't done the deep research on it, but I don't think he was too bothered about how people pronounce his name as long as he got paid, So I don't care if people pronounce my name right. I don't think that there's an unacceptable way to say it.
Another question that Charles has been asking, and I've seen your comments time and time again, Charles, and I'm sorry, I'm trying to get to them as best I can. Eddie Stone, Model 17. Are you familiar with that rifle?
Yeah, 1917s.
Yep. Mm-hmm. Best grain to shoot from that, in your opinion?
Nah, that I don't know. That's down to those rifles can handle it. Like that's a Mauser style bolt action rifle. It's not going to tear it up one way or the other. So unless you're hot charging the crap out of it. So what I would do with those is I would make note of your rifling twist and try out a couple different weights and see what's giving you the best grouping. That's really down to you.
Yeah. So my recommendation, Charles, and of course, naturally, I'm not a professional, so take my advice with a grain of salt. Go ahead and start reloading If you are reloading, take your shell casing, fill it full of powder, and then press a bullet on top of it. You'll be fine. Just run with that. You'll be good. If that doesn't work, you'll end up needing to buy a new rifle anyway. So
to be fair, that's how cases used to be designed.
Yeah. I do also want to mention, and I had mentioned this to Matt in our episode that we did together. One of the comments that I had in here was that they love to bring up C&Rsenal for their bedtime ritual.
Yeah, that's why we put War Declared in there, to make sure that they suffer a little bit for it.
Well, I would have to say that that is actually one of my rituals as well. I will put on a C&Rsenal, whatever comes up in my recommendation feed, because there's always at least one video that pops up, and I will start it. Let's see. Right now, I'm working through the Hotchkiss episode you guys did on the Hotchkiss machine gun,
right?
And this is completely a compliment to you and also to May, but I put it on because I know that it's going to put me to sleep, not because it's a bad thing, because it's so calming, it's relaxing. The information that you're providing is just allows me to stop focusing on all the other shenanigans that my mind's usually going through. And that's really what helps me kind of.
Hey, it still counts as engagement. I'm fine with
it. Exactly.
Do a playlist though. That way I just keep getting a penny every time. You know?
I will say though, if I start an episode at night, I'm fortunate enough that my day job, I work from home. Right. So in the morning, unless I fall asleep, which I have fallen asleep, and it's ran the entire episode while I'm sleeping. Mm-hmm. But if I do make the intentional effort of shutting it down and turning the light off and going to bed, I do bring it up the next day and finish it out. Because you guys just have so much information that you dump into an episode, and I wanted to ask, how do you prep for an episode? You said you're going to have one drop in tonight. Is that correct?
Yeah, we have one coming out tonight.
Yeah. So how do you prepare a video? How long does it take? I mean,
it depends. Some of them have been able to turn around pretty quickly. For whatever reason, the gun's on hand, the ammo's on hand. It takes about a week of research because the resources are in English. There's not that many of them. They're fairly good or well-organized resources. But a lot of them, it takes... The fact that we release every other week is kind of weird, because I'm still not even sure how I'm doing it, because it takes me at least a week to do the research on each gun, and usually a little bit more, which means I'm kind of working in the margins of my own time. But generally what happens is months before an episode happens, I have to get a vague idea of the firearms so that I know what books to get and what version of the firearm to get. And then we'll start that acquisition process either through loans or through purchasing if we have to resell later. And then we have to start if it has any kind of funky ammo, I have to talk to my ammo guy and be like, can we do this? How do we do this? And in that regard, I actually have two ammo guys. I have an ammo historian, like a guy that really likes doing ammo history. He's an ammunition collector, so he has a lot of reference pieces. So I can talk to him about what the heck is this ammo supposed to actually be? Like, what's the period? Do you have any period reports on muzzle velocity out of a known rifle or pistol or whatever, so that we can then hand it over to the hand loader? Because you can go dig through whatever. You can have the best hand loading books and they'll tell you all this stuff. But then at the end of the day, you have to stick it in the gun at a slightly reduced rate and walk up on it until you get the right muzzle velocity. And then you've got it. And see if it we're working with other people's loaned pieces. We don't want to damage them. So that part takes weeks and weeks and weeks. It's whatever. I remember the Comblane took us well over 2 years because we got stuck on trying to have a custom milled die from an individual machinist in order to make this stupid cartridge. So you get through sort of everything you need to be able to fire the weapon, to have the weapon on hand, and then you try to get the books in. And if they're in foreign language, you might need more weeks of lead time in order to have, May tends to be the one that does this part, but we'll have to scan the entire book and then OCR it. And then we have to then take that and run it through some sort of translation program and then break that into something that's legible, which can really drag on the hours. And then you have to sort of, I don't know, it's a nightmare. So you get all that stuff together weeks ahead of time.
Mm-hmm.
You do the research, actually reading and compiling the research for a few days. And then I'd say it takes me about 2 days of taking all of my I'd say it takes however long it takes to read everything and make notes on it. Then you take an afternoon to take those notes and put them in chronological order. I tend to color code them based on what source they came from, and there's sources I trust more than others. And when they agree, it's nice. And when they disagree, I have to weight which one I trust more on that particular topic. I then sort them out into chronological order, compare, remove stuff, keep stuff. Then, over 2 days, I turn that into an actual script, which nowadays goes into a actual transcription, like an actual teleprompter, because that sped us up a lot. I used to not work with a teleprompter. That was miserable. I don't know why it took me so long to start working with one. I'm an idiot. Because now we film about, for an hour-long episode, it probably takes us an hour and 20 minutes to do the actual filming, minus setting up and tearing down, because I film out of this 10 by 10 room.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, I'm not surrounded by electrical cables and lights. So whenever we set up, we have to set up everything to film in here because we have very limited space. I don't have a permanent studio. So there's probably about like an hour and a half both ways to getting everything set up and focused and transitioning to this shot or that shot. It's a lot. It's the short answer. I tend to work about 60 hours a week on average. Now that May's come on full time, May tends to work 60 or 70 hours. She actually is starting to work a little harder than I am in terms of taking over more of the sort of process, so that I'm freed to do research, and then I do all of our design work. So any product has to come from me as well.
Right.
And so she's doing like the assembly, acquisition, that kind of stuff.
So when you said teleprompter, you actually meant May is behind the camera with cue cards.
No, you can get a reflector. They have little reflector kits that are
totally kidding. Totally.
Oh, okay. I didn't know they existed. I was so happy when I found one day, and I was like, "Why am I not doing this?"
Yeah, I have been on the rare occasion. I actually have a program, an app on my phone, and I just connect the phone to my tripod for my camera, and I have a teleprompter that way. But the problem is my eyes are slowly starting to fade. So, having something, that's like this far away, that doesn't help very much.
No, we have a tablet on a reflector that goes in front of the camera, and so I can look straight at the camera and read. Mm-hmm. And so it's very nice.
Yeah, and that's something that I've been encouraged to do. The ones that I saw were running like, man, they're like freaking $800. So,
No, you should be able to get a lot cheaper than that.
I'm sure that there's been some that have come out since that are cheaper. Just to be honest with you, I haven't looked into it very much. So
I don't think we spent more than $150, but that's
good. Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, when you guys go out to the range and May shoots, and that's something that's actually really remarkable, is to see May shoot some of the rifles, some of the firearms, not just rifles. I mean, she shot a BAR on full auto from the shoulder.
The shoulder is easier than that stupid hip cup, but yeah.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that was amazing. How many firearms are you filming through one range session? Is it just one particular one, or is there multiple firearms?
As many as we can, and hopefully of the same type. If we're filming standing, we really want to, or if we're filming rifle, we really want to have a day of just rifles. Mm-hmm. If we're filming pistol, we really want to have a day of just pistols. And sometimes there's range filmings that happen months ahead of the actual episode.
Yes. Because
it's just ammo is available and we got the shot while we were there. Where we're at, we also are this is a weird thing to say, we're lucky in that it rains almost every dang day. I mean, not really, but we're in that sort of subtropical, we're in that sort of near tropical area, and we get a lot of cloud cover if we're lucky. But it's also, it comes and goes. And so it's become very difficult for us because you get your very best footage whenever there's cloud cover, and when there's not, it's just horrible. And there's some older episodes especially where we couldn't get the scheduling right. May wasn't full time yet, so we'd have to work on weekends or whatever, and that limited our ability with light. But we really looked for cloudy, rainy days. We looked for, if we can't get that, we are intimately familiar with where the shadows are in the trees and where the sunlight is. So like this time of year, if we're filming a handgun, we have a 1 hour window in which to film. Because that is the time in which the tree shadows hit deep enough to not silhouette her filming, and yet it doesn't get so dark that the cameras can't keep up. And so we have to be right there at like 4:30, and filming by 5, and then by 5:36, it's gone. And so you just get everything locked in 2 hours ahead of time, and then you just sit there and watch the clouds and watch the sky and wait for the shadows, and then you real quick film everything and hope everything works real well. So
that's amazing.
Yeah.
That's a lot more thought put into it than what I would do. I just me personally, I have some of the most horrible B-roll because I just turn the camera on and go. I don't even care. So
well, I mean, auto gets you a long way with cameras now, and like camera phones. And we've started experimenting with more camera phone work on our little clay thrower series. It looks ramshackle, but what it really is us sort of putting our toe in the water to feel like, can we do a lighter equipment load, and how do we do more dynamic footage? And it has its problems, but it was all filmed in one afternoon with a minimal number of cameras and equipment. And so we're using that as a test bed for doing other things down the road.
Yeah. I've actually done a lot of work with my iPhone, especially with how good the resolution is when it comes to some of the video work, how good it's gone. One of the interesting things that I've started to do with my pistol reviews is to show the contrast of your front sight opposed to your rear sight.
Right.
And for me, that's extremely easy because I can just take my phone and I can video it, and I can press on the screen, okay, focus here, now focus here, and it shows that focal change between the rear and the front sight. With my regular camera, it makes it a lot more difficult because I'm having to,
Yeah, we had a if you look at Project Lightning, I think there's footage of me like laying down on the ground behind the machine guns with a jib arm behind the guns, and I'm running the manual focus back and forth so that we can get those sight transitions that were in Project Lightning. And so, yeah, it's one of those things where I'd like to do more of that, but then I have to find a way to integrate that into the bigger problem for us, honestly, is integrating everything into being repeatable for every single episode, because it's ultimately, once you add a feature, you have to keep the feature. And so, we used to have, when we first started the series, a 15-minute episode with whatever features in it. And some of the features were too heavy and we had to cut them. And now, as we've expanded, we add in. So it's an hour-long episode almost every time with, however many features that have to be there, or else people are disappointed. And so we try to integrate things very slowly to make sure that we're consistent over a longer period of time.
Luke B, he just jumped in there. He says, I purposely didn't finish this 5th tonight since I know the new primer is coming out. Well, good for you. Good for you. One of the other series that you guys are doing is May's Minute.
Minute of May, which was actually, it was supposed to be a sort of a recycle promo series. So the idea was we have all this footage and it's tied into this very heavy format that people don't necessarily watch. It's hard to commit to an hour-long video. Our own animator, if you ever listen to him in any sort of interview, somebody asked him what made him want to, was he excited about C&Rsenal from the beginning? And he said, I hated C&Rsenal at the beginning because I would watch Forgotten Weapons and I'd see these like thumbnails and they had this beautiful photo and they were very uniform and clear. And I would see the thumbnails and I'd think, who the hell do they think they are? Like, he thought it was too pretentious. And so then he eventually started clicking on the episodes and he's like, an hour, what is this? And slowly he was forced into watching a couple, and then he really liked it. And then he emailed me about 3D animation, and then we hired him. But at first he was completely turned off by the weight of the show and the professionalism of the show. So Minute of May was supposed to bridge that gap. It actually came from talking to, you're familiar with Iraq veteran?
Oh yeah, of course. Chad. Eric,
yeah. We were specifically talking to, I believe, Chad, who I occasionally end up on the phone with way too long. You would not expect, they're the complete opposite off the channel. Chad's the one that talks.
Yep.
So about anything, watch out. So, and I love him, sorry, but it's a wonderful conversationalist, but good Lord, you better be prepared. So we were talking about, I can't remember what, we were out there filming with them, and he said, you know, we used to do these minute things and we really need to do them again. And I was like, why would you do it at exactly a minute? He's like, at the time, that was what Instagram allowed. And so we had really just started playing with Instagram, and I was like, yeah, I'll take that idea. He's like, yeah, go for it. I don't care. So I took my shooting footage and reduced it to a minute, and put May's voiceover, just giving a quick rundown of the gun. And we launched it, and at that time, Instagram basically started just dumping on gun content. And you know, you still can't really go viral on Instagram as a gun anything. You can slowly grow and reach the gun community, but you can't reach outside the gun community. You're in a bubble. So they were doomed on Instagram from the start, and it was a pain to use my phone to do that, and I just gave up on it. On YouTube, we noticed that we were getting limited ads on them because they were auto scanning us for gunfire, and every time any video that had a gunshot in it was just getting demonetized. So on YouTube, they were getting maybe 2,000 views at a time when the regular episodes were getting 20, and they weren't reaching new market. It was basically only the people who were already watching Primer were watching these things, and they became completely useless to us. After a year of not doing them, we got into a conversation with a guy who knows a guy at YouTube, which is how everything ever seems to get fixed there, which is a pain in my butt. But I mean, I'm thankful for him, but it's awful that that's the way it has to work. Like that's nepotism to me, but whatever. We got into a conversation with them about fixing our monetization when we were fully demonetized. We got fixed. A few months later, we had another big hit on a lot of stuff turning yellow, and I had to go to them and be like, guys, I don't know what you want me to do here. We don't even have Anvil on this show anymore. We have all this historical content. Everything is in a historical context. There's no politics. There's no high-speed load drag. There's no links to whatever. I'm as neutral as you literally, if you cannot tolerate what we're doing, you therefore cannot tolerate the sight of a firearm in any context on your platform, because we are less offensive than most movies in how they use firearms, you know? And so that got a response that everything got green lit again. We were moving again. And I noticed that all of a sudden after that, the old Minute of Maze started getting some views, because they were bite size and they had this sort of quick icon that people recognized. And some of them started moving pretty good. So we brought them back, and they're kicking butt now. So the Minute of Maze is a very interesting thing for me, because it's sort of proved to me that we have been suppressed at some level, because I don't think that much changed all that dramatically, that they would go from 2,000 views to 20,000 views in the course of a year in terms of our exposure. I don't see it that way. I see it that they were getting suppressed, as in they weren't being shown, they were being, you know, demonetized and that sort of thing. But they're doing well now, and I see comments on them every day, and the comments are clearly people who didn't watch the episodes, because they're like yelling things that were already in the episode. So
yeah, it's interesting that you bring up the demonetization aspect. So your channel was completely 100% demonetized at one point. Is that correct?
Yes, we did get wiped out for oh God, I can't remember what it was. It was some video that was so innocuous, and they were saying that we did, I can't even remember what it was now, but we clearly hadn't done that. To be fair, I run into this problem all the time. They tell you know, Tal Flatermouse, the man who shoots the odd shotgun shells, he had a video go down, and he finally got somebody to talk to him about it. And it was one of those rare occasions where they said what was wrong with it. And what was wrong with it is that he had shown how to, because the rule is show how to modify a firearm. And if you read their rule, it's very specific. You have to show how to modify a firearm to do one of several things. The way that their end user interpreted that was they had a shotgun that had a flashlight on it, and that was a modification. So therefore, boom. And it's like, whoa, 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 whoa. Number one, flashlights are not included in the modifications list. Number two, he didn't show you how to put the flashlight on there. Number three, that's a factory flashlight, you know? And when this was pointed out, boom, it remonetizes. But that tells you something is like, I always talk to guys and like, well, their policy doesn't say explicitly this. And I'm like, yes, but the interpretation of the policy is everything. And it's extremely wide.
Yep.
So,
yep. So my channel was fully demonetized in May of 2019.
right.
And then I was able to get it back. I was able to get it back on later on that summer, but every video, regardless of what I post, it could be me in the garage lifting weights. It could be, me talking about this bottled water, automatically demonetized, and it has to be manually reviewed, which I'm assuming that my channel has been flagged somehow to.
Yeah, you're in trouble for something.
Yeah, for something, which
when it
happened to me, it happened to 3 different YouTubers. It was me, the Daily Shooter, and I can't remember the other guy. But everyone was saying, "Oh, well, that just means that you would put links in your description to firearm content." And I was like, "No, unless."
No, I'm going to tell you firsthand. The few times I've known creators that have gotten it explained to them, it has been so batshit, and there are people that have done things that probably did break the rules, and it's never an actual rule break. It's always some insanely weird interpretation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Coyote Brownish, he says, "Is there an alternative to YouTube that you like?" For me, it's Odyssey. I use Odyssey because it automatically migrates everything over from YouTube as soon as I post it.
That's the one that's built on top of Library, isn't it?
I think so, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we tried Library early, but they were so obsessed with cryptocurrency weirdness that I was like, this is not a winning formula. My current dog in this fight is one that's not even out of beta. It's Utreon, which is such a... I love them and I hate them because that name is... It's perfect because it tells you everything you need to know, but it's also so redundant. But... Utreon, I don't know about you, but I've received a lot of messages in my inbox that are like, "Oh, we got this new platform, we got this new platform, we got this new platform."
Yep.
And it's the same crap over and over again. You go and you look, and it's like, this is on so and so's platform, and you're rehosting it. That's not going to work. This is on whatever. It's not going to work. This is, or I really hate the ones that are guns only, because you're never gonna... That's not how you expand. You don't go to a walled garden. You go to the most open and diverse market you can in order to get new viewers. So then you have the freedom of speech guys who are like, we're gonna allow everything. No, you're not. No, you're not, because what's gonna happen is the Project Choke Point is a reality. It's not a conspiracy theory. It's a thing that you could go to Wikipedia, look up Operation Choke Point. It was a government move to have the banking industry throttle what they considered to be illicit trades, like prostitution, blah, 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 right? And guns, which was a legal trade. It's like the only legal thing that they went after was guns. And if you look, actually today, Biden did the same thing all over again. He said he loosened the Trump era rule about making sure that people in controversial fields had equal access to banking. Boy, I wonder who he's going after, Mm-hmm. And they always do it. They're going to... If you try to have a freedom of speech platform, they will throttle you at the banking level. Mm-hmm. That's we need until somebody makes a libertarian or right-wing bank and merchant services and credit card and everything. The entire foundation has to be rebuilt, or it's not going to happen. So Utreon has come in and they sent me an email and they said, we are not going to be a 100% free speech platform because we will be throttled by the banks. And I was like, yes, you will. And then they said, what we think is YouTube is doing this thing where they are blanket calling everything monetizable or not, safe or not. That lacks nuance. If you want to have Heckler and Koch sell guns to people, or product, t-shirt, I don't care what it is, you know what I mean? If you have a gun accessory that wants to sell to people who watch gun content, they're going to want their ad to play over gun shows like yours. They're not going to want it to play over, makeup tutorials. Not necessarily. I mean, maybe, but I doubt it, They want access. It's funny, but if you talk to the manufacturers, if you talk to the people like Brownells, they want avenues in order to reach out to people. but they're being blocked out of the market, right?
Mm-hmm.
So Utreon comes in and they say, look, we'll just tell people this is a gun show. If you don't want to put your ads over guns, okay, and you don't have to. Does that mean that at the end of the day I might not make as much money off soap? Oh yeah, I probably won't. But if you're targeting men in their 20s, you're going to want to go to me anyway. You know what I mean? So if we make it more nuanced for the advertiser and let them select, then we don't have to play this game of putting everybody in one bag. So that's their number one thing, is they're going to be a better integrator between ads and creators. The number two thing is that they're going to have Patreon style support built in so that you can directly subscribe and support people like you would on Patreon. That's another way that you can just have everything in one platform. I think it's a very winning strategy. I speak to their CEO actually very often. He's a super friendly guy, and he has an extremely engineering style approach to how do we fix the problems with how YouTube does what it does. So it's kind of like it's going to be the same sort of use case as YouTube, where they're not going to allow quote unquote hate speech, but they are going to allow firearms. They are going to allow controversial topics. They're just going to label them appropriately and let people choose whether they want to engage with that or not. Mm-hmm. That seems fair to me. And so I've been working with those guys. Now, to be fair, go check out Utreon if you guys are curious about this sort of thing. They're not done. Like their feature set is not there. He and I have had a lot of conversations about utilities that I would like to have that YouTube doesn't even provide. And there is a roadmap for that, including a secret feature that I am not allowed to talk about that I actually designed for the platform, because we were having a conversation. I said, you know what would make my life easier is this thing. And when I mentioned it, he started thinking about it, talked to some of his guys, and they realized that, and I can't get into detail, but the application of it would mean a dramatically improved way of doing things than YouTube. And one that might set them apart very easily. So I'm hoping that gets put in. It's sort of a Gen 2 thing because they have to get the core functionality there, but I would like to see it. So basically, they're very responsive. I know that he's talking to gun advertisers. I know he wants to talk to gun industry. In addition to talking to everybody, he talks to people on the left, on the right. He wants to make a platform that is better. So that's my dog in the fight.
And what was the name of the platform again?
Utreon. So the letter U and then Treon. Now, if you go, I remind you, first impressions mean a lot. It's not done. Not all the function is there. It's he comes, I believe he's from medical software. And so this is his first foray into social media software. But he has the experience to develop something, and he's working very hard on it.
I'm trying to bring it up right here just so I...
Yeah, May typed it into the chat, I believe.
Oh, there it is. Got it. All right.
But, I mean, he's spoken with Ian and I. He did an interview with Ian and I that's available on our Patreon. He's engaged is the short answer.
Awesome. Now, will Utreon, does it have the ability to migrate stuff from one platform to another, or?
Yes, currently it is cloning my channel there.
Oh, awesome. Yeah. Well, I'm going to go ahead and work on setting that up over the next couple of days and throw that in there. So, I mean, having multiple avenues to post items is going to be extremely beneficial. So,
right.
Actually, very interesting. I'll have to do some more research on that and understand it a little bit better.
Yeah, they're doing a lot of, they've actually done what he would call some white glove servicing. So they have a person that they've hired sort of secretarially, I guess is the way to say it, who is going through and properly tagging and marking and sort of SEO optimizing videos by creators. And so they're onboarding slowly, but what they're trying to do is make sure that search results will start picking up their creators. Like they're already gaming how to make sure that you have market outreach right at the front. It's not laissez-faire like BitChute has been. They're very engaged in trying to create the better platform.
That's good to hear. That's really good to hear. And it's, it kind of leads into the whole social media discussion, obviously what you were talking about with banking and trying to shut people out. It's very similar to what the big tech companies did with Parler and boxing them out. And some might say that it's a conspiracy theory that, you know, the top three big tech companies conspired to, you know, get them booted from Amazon servers.
Mhm.
But it seems very coincidental that that happened at the same time that Trump was dumped by Twitter, and you know. It is what it is, but as of today, news today is that Parler's coming back. I know people like Tim Pool and Jeremy from the Quartering; they have their accounts back. Mine's not back. I don't know if you have Parler or not, but
I had one, but the engagement was low. To be honest with you, I've never liked Twitter. I don't like the way the platform works, and Parler emulates Twitter, so I'm not that interested.
yeah,
I find Facebook to be so. My problem is, I actually find Facebook to be the most functional social media in terms of actually sharing and using. Well, the second most functional. The primary most functional social media I know of is Discord, or maybe like Slack, because for me, it's a way to very easily work with other people in a live environment, share videos, share PDFs, share whatever, and then talk over voice over IP. Discord is the most functional social media I know of. And we have one that's available publicly at the bottom of our website at KC&Rsenal.com. So anybody can join it. We don't do it as a Patreon reward. So second to that is probably Facebook, which is a sort of, I would consider it to be the aggregator of your social circle, the way they keep in touch with people that you don't see every day. It functions very well to me, except for the part where they've so overloaded it with ads. And then also on top of that, laid in a bunch of sort of video services to loosely compete with YouTube in this very odd, arbitrary way that I no longer like it. In looking for a Facebook alternative, I found MeWe, which is the worst name for anything ever. But on MeWe, the way they get monetized is if you go to set up a page for your business, you pay a subscription fee for like $2 to run that page a month, you know, something like that. But they don't have ads, and it's literally Facebook without ads. It is so much nicer there, but it's a ghost town, and yet it is very easy to use, very much like Facebook. I can't figure out why, regardless of the censorship, I don't know why everybody hasn't gone over to this platform, because it's a much more pleasant Facebook experience.
I've seen a number of the people that I follow on Instagram have, said that they're over on MeWe. I hadn't really paid any attention to it because it was hard enough. It's hard enough for me to post anything on Instagram on a daily basis, let alone 2 or 3 other platforms as well.
To be fair, once everybody's on MeWe, they'll probably put ads in. That's my big fear, is that I'll beat the drum for everybody to go over there, and then once they do, we're a captive audience, and they do the whole thing over again. You know, that tends to be what happens.
Yeah.
Reddit got their start by not being as bad as Dig, and now they're worse than Dig ever was. You know, so it's the cycle. You know.
Yeah, and that's what Jeremy from the Quartering said about Parler. Parler is probably one of the biggest competitors to Twitter right now, and they have the ability to supersede, or I should say surpass, Twitter as far as engagement, usership, and so on and so forth. But the problem is they're going to end up becoming such a large entity like Twitter is that they'll eventually become Twitter.
Right.
It'll just be the exact same thing. So
eventually money, once you have the biggest market, the money starts to flow in that direction. The leverage starts to flow in that direction. People who want authority over others will, you can't lever 2 million people, but you can lever the 12 people that own that business that have 2 million followers. That's what they do.
Yeah. Absolutely. I did have another question for you in regards to C&Rsenal, and I wanted to kind of dive into kind of the favorites for you, and I just, what has been the biggest pleasure, the most pleasurable experience. So we already know that you have your favorite rifle is the Candrsenal, which is
number one.
Yeah, absolutely. Which is oddly, was just very ironic that today's President's Day and Palmetto State Armory was running a sale on Candrsenals.
That was the TS. It wasn't the same model that got them. Okay, I think it's not all. They're not all the same gun. All right.
So for you guys that are not familiar, the Candrsenal is the rifle that was used to
specifically a sporterized M38 with a scope.
Was used to assassinate JFK. But it's not. But Footbusters, he says, yeah, but it was the TS that he ordered.
Yeah, but that's not what arrived, because that thing's an M38.
Anyway. So, of all of the firearms that you have had a chance to review, talk about, shoot, et cetera, what has been your favorite? What was the one that stands out to you the most? May, I know you're listening in. Jump into the chat room with your favorite.
Well, for me, I'll have to unfortunately disappoint everybody and say it's whichever one that I haven't filmed yet. Because the whole reason for the show is that my obsession is to find out more about the next thing. And so
that's a great answer.
By the time I've had it in my hands, to be honest with you, I'm now done with it. Like, I don't want to, not that I hate it or anything. There's things that I cherish, that I really love owning. But it's just one of those things where it's like, I love them all for different reasons and different utility and things like that. Or even just the failures. I really love some of the failures. The worst guns are some of my favorites. But in terms of just having like the best shooter, none of them, because they're all 100 years old. Like, I don't carry a 100-year-old firearm when I conceal carry. That's not how they work. There's been improvements since then. So it's really hard to pick a favorite because it's all different things. I think I've been impressed by some systems, like just the outright weirdness that is doing like a rotating magazine for the Mannlicher Schönauers. Like, very smooth, very nice. Why? Or the Krag Jorgensen's, the capsule magazine, again, very smooth, very nice. Militarily, why? Like, it's a lot to put into a gun, for, you could do it with this. It's one of those things, like, how Chad of a move is it for, Paul Mauser to roll in and be like, I can fit 5 rounds with like one flat spring and a piece of steel for a follower. You just have to stagger them. Whereas everybody else is like, to make the Krag compact, they had done this like roll around the entire receiver bull crap with milling and think about the amount of cost and time. And he's like, yo, I made a rectangle, you put them side by side, it's got a spring and a thing, and we're done. Out. It's and then now it's boring, like, because you found the solution. It's no one's done better than that. The end, which is great, innovative, brilliant, boring, So I don't know, I like some of the wacky stuff, that just the first iterations of things. But I couldn't say I have a favorite. I think it's too hard. If I'm just trying to relax, though, like if I'm just not really thinking about it, I have a Marlin 17 shotgun, which is a fixed frame hammer fire Marlin shotgun. It weighs nothing despite being made out of steel. They're like the lightest shotguns of their time period. And I'll take that out and I'll have somebody toss some clay in the air and I'll shoot it. Or I'll bring out the little, electric car battery one, and I'll shoot it. And then that's sort of the way I can shoot without having to think too much about what I'm doing. I can just enjoy that gun. So that might be my most sort of calm firearm, is one of those Marlins. But that's really probably the first thing that comes to mind.
Yeah, and one of the pistols that has always been of interest to me is the Mauser broom handle, the C96. And I just recently, about a week or so ago, watched your episode about it, and I was actually surprised how much I don't think I would like that pistol.
Yeah. Oh no, they're a miserable handgun. Yeah, everybody loves the look of it, and you're just like, this is the worst handgun.
Yeah.
No, it's as a carbine, sure, but not as a handgun.
Yeah, I had never really had one in my hand, but just seeing May and how, when she held it, how high that bore axis was. It's like 2 inches above her, wrist. Yeah, it's ridiculous.
Yeah, and if you ever have to go in and service one, the mechanism is just, it's like an M.C. Escher painting in there. You know what I mean? Like, everything interlocks in this weird esoteric way. It works, but good Lord, man. Like, there's no 2 straight lines inside the entire thing.
Freaking Matt says the C96 legit acts like it was designed for an octopi.
it's one of those things where like, all right, we got a handle. Now let's put a gun on it. Done. Like, I mean, it's just an amalgam.
Stop with Camel Toe says, how did your dad get you into the channel? My
Yeah,
dad,
that's what I want to know.
yeah, my dad just he has YouTube set up through his Roku, and I'd come over, and anytime that I go and visit my dad, I usually spend the majority of a weekend with him, and there's going to be two things that we talk about. It's either going to be firearms or it's going to be politics. We usually end up solving the world's problems in about 30 minutes, and then we just rant for the other 47 and a half hours. But he would just ask me, he's like, hey, have you seen this video about such and such? And I'm like, no. And he'd flip it on, and we'd watch.
And then you're like, Dad, this is an hour and a half long. What are you doing?
Yeah, no, I was like, I would sit there and just quietly watch. And I'm just like, after a couple episodes, like, these are very long videos. And he's like, yeah, they're all like this. Then he started watching, he started showing me some of the Anvil videos, which were, those were amazing. You said you guys aren't,
we've separated the channels now. Because Mark always retained. So we spun up Anvil. Mark was trying to do his business, and then I told him, hey, I can get you a lot of clientele very easily if you're willing to be on camera and show what you do. And he was and the weird thing is, I've done that offer for a dozen people, and now only 2 people have taken me up on it. Well, the first was Mark, and then the second one was Matt. So Fudbusters was the second person to ever actually say, okay, tell me how to do this. I'm doing this. And then they started doing it. Now Matt can run his own channel, but Mark did not have that experience. So we had to help him much more at that early stage, and went ahead and integrated him under the umbrella with the idea that he could always break off if he wanted to.
Oh, that's good.
And it's one of those things I was just like, when we started sort of splitting stuff up, it's just like, well, what do I do about this, that, and the other in terms of design assets that I've done for him? And I'm like, no. From the beginning, this was all a gift to you to get out there and do this work. And so it's just gone its own way. Like, it's his own business. He has a schedule that doesn't integrate well with mine. And he wants to release when he wants to release, whereas C&Rsenal is very monolithic. Like, a lot of people would think they would like to work with me in terms of doing videos or whatever, but I'm going to release a primer every other Tuesday. Get out of my way. You know what I mean? And if you're going to do something, we're going to do it, for 1 year. We're going to do it at the exact same time every week. It's going to have to happen because consistency is king. And so with him trying to run a shop, that didn't always work. So it was much easier. And then YouTube also was like really confused as to what our channel was and what we were doing. Like, it really was causing some weird stuff behind the scenes with YouTube, because they're just like, well, you're manufacturing whatever. Like, no, we're not. We're just repairing an old gun. But it just freaked them out and made it very hard to be like, we're just historical content. So it was much easier to just sort of be like, all right, let's get these apart. And then after separating them, we both had an easier time dealing with YouTube, because it stopped the confusion on their side. So that's really how things ended up.
Interesting. I did want to go back and read some of May's comments if you guys didn't already see it. She said that on her favorite items to shoot, it's hard to say what my favorite, but the T-Gewehr was incredible experience, just because it was stupid large, stupidly loud, and just horrendous to shoot.
That was one of the worst days of my life.
Had to carry the T-Gewehr up a sand hill. That was amazingly difficult. Drycy, one of my favorite pistols, never expected it to...
The Dryza, yeah.
The Dryza, yep. To be such a point-and-shoot gun. We had so many noobs shoot it for the first time and still drill a hole with it.
That is a gun that does not appear to be designed for a human hand, and has weird gutter sights, sort of, and then you point it and you shoot it, and it's just a bullseye. And you're like... And you hate it. You're like, this feels awful. I'm gonna shoot again, and it's gonna be wild. And then you hit like, one MOA, and then you're like, and then you just empty the mag, and it's all a little tiny group on the A, and you're just like, how does this work? I hated every moment of that, and it kept hitting.
I've got a dog freaking out here. Hold on one second. Hey, come here.
So I will tell a story while he's doing that. When we filmed the Tigavere, we were down to the wire because we were holding out for weather. We were doing stuff with the cartridges. And at the end of the wire, I managed to get a fever. So it is literally 98 degrees out in the summer in Charleston. And we are waiting for cloud cover because it's the Tigavere. We only have 5 rounds that we can shoot with. And we have to get it right. So we're waiting for clouds in order to do each of the shots. Essentially, I think we finally got one big cloud and managed to get all of it in one big cloud. But while we're waiting there, it's 98 degrees out, and I'm laying in the bed of a truck with a 101-degree fever. Ugh. Just drinking as much water as I can and just sweating in all directions, delirious, going, I'm waiting for the cloud. And then I had to get up, and I was the only one that knew the cameras well enough, so I had to focus all the cameras. I set up the forward shot last. I am not in front of the muzzle, but I'm right beside the muzzle. You know what I mean? Like, I set that camera up, I step aside and keep my eye on the screen so we don't lose the shot. And I go, okay, pull the trigger. And then all 5 rounds failed to fire because they light struck. And then I said, okay, we're going to shoot them again and just see, because now they're all dimpled and maybe we'll get lucky. And we did. We got, I think, 4 in a row that actually went off, and the scene went great. The problem is I just heard click 5 times. It's hot. I have a fever. I'm sick. And I'm in front of that barrel, or to the side of that barrel. But, you know, where the blast, I'm in the blast zone, not thinking about it because I'm stupid. And so finally, number 6 goes click, and it's the first shot. And it's why there's a genuine surprise on her face, because it's like she was surprised it went off. I'm surprised it went off. And so she starts laughing, and it's on camera, and everybody loves that moment. What you don't see, and I wish I had a recording of, is me standing straight up white as a ghost with my hair blown back because I'd been in the muzzle blast of that thing, and it rang my bell. And I was just like, of course the big gun went boom. Why did I not think that would happen? And then she has to proceed to put more rounds through it while I'm just standing there taking the hits going, yep, got to get this footage. And it's just like, I've sat next to Barrett's and stuff where the brake's throwing it at you, but I wasn't sick and I wasn't unaware of what was happening. So I was just like, yep, I'll never forget that.
Yeah. I try to do the best I can to integrate some of my goof ups as well, or things that don't go necessarily as well as they're supposed to. The video that I ended up burning the internet down on for all the Taurus fanboys out there is when I said that I would recommend a Taurus, but I wouldn't recommend it. And that video starts with me trying to shoot the pistol and then realizing that the thumb safety is on. I was like, oh, so safety's on. And I've had so many people that like, they watch that video and they're like, oh, I immediately stopped watching this as soon as I saw that you didn't know how to work a thumb safety. And I'm like,
yeah, you're like,
okay, great.
It was on. It's not knowing how to work it.
But those nuances are always fun to see, especially when, you've done so much wonderful content, so much great content. And then sometimes you have those things that don't go as planned. To see those dropped in there, and the expressions are always fun to see.
Yeah, everybody loves me showering myself with the Steyr Hahn too. There's a video. The Steyr Hahn has 2 buttons that should be both slide releases, but it's complicated. There's a button that is, whenever the gun is empty, it is your slide release. Whenever the gun is full, it's the magazine release. And so it just like I hit the button as if it were the slide release, because handling it dry, that's what I was used to. And so, of course, it just showered ammo into my face, which everybody loves.
I'm going to have to go back and watch that after we get done with this. Oh, yeah. It's hilarious. Real quick, I did have someone asking, you said that you don't carry a 100-year-old weapon to conceal carry. What do you like to carry for your concealed carry?
I settled into a CZ75 compact double action, so decocker with I have a Cajun Gunworks concealed carry kit in there, so it's that kit has given me the best concealed carry trigger I've ever experienced. It's not as light as a competition gun, but you don't want it to be. Right. But in terms of smoothness with a good pull. Like I've been very happy with it. I've got some night sights on there. I don't run a flashlight with it or anything like that though. So I've handed it around. People have very much enjoyed it. I did do low profile G10 scales that are very aggressive. I like a very aggressive grip. Yeah. And so that's where I'm at. I've experienced other guns. I don't think that's like the do-all of guns, but for the price point and the available aftermarket options, that's where I was happiest. I do tend to like a hammerfire better. Probably my next favorite modern handgun that I use regularly is the Steyr L2A1. Steyr L. Oh my god, now I'm doing this. L9A2. God, I wish they didn't name it that way. As far as I know, I think I did a loose translation. I haven't gotten deep into it, but Bubba, the man who designed those pistols, he also designed the Caracal. And then he did then it gets weird because he didn't, I think it's like the BB Tech. I don't know what it's called. He called the Caracal because he liked mythical animals. And as far as I know, I think, and it's out of my memory, so I could be wrong, I think he wanted to name the M9 series the Draconi, which would have made it so much cooler sounding and a lot easier to know what you're talking about, because it's like the M9's the medium and the S9's the short and the L9's the large, but they didn't have an L in the first series, so there's only the L9A1, and it's so hard to describe those dang pistols from Steyr because they don't have a name. So I've just sort of been internally calling them Draconis. But I'd have to double check. I need to go look at my book again to make sure that's the correct term. But that's what I remember. I actually like those little guys. I have a M9A1 and an L9A2, and I like a lot of what they did on the L9A2. They were not really importing them, and then the panic hit, and all the M9s got bought up, or the A1s got bought up, so they started importing them again. So if you go on Gunbroker and stuff, you can find them now. I had to fight to find one because they were rare when I bought it, but now they're everywhere. They make a C9 that's really impressive, but they have this really odd triangular sight that I've been toying with, and I found that you have to use that sight in a very specific way, and otherwise it's terrible. But I'm still experimenting with it. I haven't decided if I'm willing to lean on it or not, especially because it doesn't come in any sort of night sight. I'll probably switch out to something that I can get some true glow or something like that. Like I really like to have a little light on there, but they're weird sights.
Yeah. I've seen them at SHOT Show. I guess it would have been last year's SHOT Show. Yeah, and just picking that up, it seems kind of intuitive, but at the same time, it's like, okay, am I putting the point of the front sight on the target, or is it?
So if you try to shoot a 4-inch pistol, like if you try to do a dueling tree with that thing, nuts to you. Everybody I've tried to run a dueling tree on it, they can't hit anything with it because the vertical spread is ridiculous. It's so hard for your eye to figure out where the top of the triangle is supposed to meet the top of those trapezoids. However, I have also done a challenge where I've said, hey, just point shoot this at 30 feet at a human silhouette. And when they do that, it is nice string. It's a vertical string in the A zone that is never off left or right by even an inch, but it's like 4 inches of vertical spread. So if you think of it as a defensive scenario in which you pop, and I've told them before, don't focus on the front or rear sight. Just look through them at the target and just let the triangle be a triangle. Like as long as if you see the triangle and it feels right in your peripheral vision and you're watching the target and you just drop that, you just start pulling that trigger, you will get a nice A zone grouping. It's almost like a point shooter. I don't know if that's what they meant because I've never heard Steyr really comment on that sight, but it works very well almost as a reflexive sight.
That's very interesting.
Yeah, so I would recommend speed shooting one of those things if you get a chance. That's always where it does best for me. But if you try to do any precision shooting, it's a goddamn nightmare. So I don't know. It's a weird gun.
Yeah, it is. I mean, I've seen. I know of one YouTube channel that swears by it. He absolutely loves it.
Yeah, I mean, I love it for shooting. Like again, I'm going to try it with regular sights, but as the A2s specifically, on the A1s, the early A1s tended to have a little bit of a rougher casting for the firing pin. If you have an early A1, go get a new firing pin, as far as I'm concerned. But on the A2s, it's probably the smoothest striker fire out of the box. But it's a weird trigger system that does not lend itself well to customization is the problem. So you get a really good trigger out of the box, but then you can't really do much with it because of the way that spring tension works on the system.
Listen, May saying that she carries a SIG P938. Very good choice. I know I've shot the 238 and a little snappy. Of course, that's 380, but the 938's the 9mm version. It's, I tell you, it's a beautiful gun. It's a really good looking gun.
To be fair, she's just fudding it with a deep conceal.
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah. At the end of the day, as long as you're carrying, it doesn't matter to me. Yeah. Now, we might razz some people about what they carry, but at the end of the day, I appreciate that.
She's too lazy to pick another gun is also part of it.
The freaking Funbusters, man.
What's he saying?
Othias is lying. He conceals an Uzi Model B.
I would do it. I don't care.
I would do it too. All right. So last question for you, I think I have for you tonight is obviously your channel is historically focused. I don't think that you have anything younger than 80 years old on any of your videos. Is that about right?
No, I can't think. I mean, my Caltech appeared in a special, but that was about it.
Yeah, Caltech. So if someone would be interested in getting into historical firearms, what would be your recommendation on where and how to start to do that?
I really would recommend watching the market. I know a lot of younger guys that are getting into it, and they come on my server, they talk to me, and they pay, frankly, ridiculous prices a lot of the time. And they're driving up their own market prices because they're not being patient. Now, if you can find a deal, you find a deal. But I think what you really ought to do is you can watch some of my videos. The stuff I tend to cover is usually more available. Like, sometimes I cover weird stuff like the Fosbury, but most of the guns are very accessible firearms because they were made in the millions. Understand what you're getting into in terms of the gun. The books are as valuable as the guns, if not more so. Do a little reading and then just pick what you like, because we're really in a sort of post-surplus market. The low end is probably still the Mosins, like the 9130s are probably still one of the more affordable surplus guns, or maybe like the Turkish Mausers, although those are starting to have some fluctuation because people figured out a lot of them are antiques. But there's some low-end Yugoslavian, there's some low-end Turkish, there's some low-end Mosin, there's some stuff like that. And that's a good place to start if it's just what is your fancy and you get a good price on it, go for it, But I'm afraid that the way the surplus market is trending now is that we're getting into the latter years of it. We're not going to see another big import all the time. I mean, you see the Carcanos. You could go, actually right now, you could go buy a Carcano TS for, what is it, like $220? You might as well, because they're not going to be $220 2 years from now. This always happens. They're never the same price. Go buy one now. Have it, What you're really going to have to learn to do, though, I think going forward, is almost all the milsurp guys are going to have to be aware of hand loading, because every time we have one of these panics, when we come back out of it, more cartridges disappear from the market because they just go, wow, we could have just made more 223. We could have just made more 7.62, and then another half dozen cartridges disappear forever every time there's a panic like this. So you're going to have to hand load if you're going to enter the surplus market at some level. You could just do US SERP and 30-06 will be there. You could maybe get away with buying, expensive 7.62x54R and doing a Mosin. That's fine. But if you actually want to get into military surplus, I think hand loading is the way that you're going to have to go forward if you want to take it seriously at all. One of the number one things I get all the time is like, I have this Gewehr 88, which bullet's correct for it? Well, if the markings are accurate, which they not always are, it's this bullet or that bullet. But what you should really do is slug the bore so that you don't have a problem. And that's a hard thing to tell people over and over again, because they don't want to do it. They don't want to have to learn to slug a bore. They want to just go to Kmart and buy whatever. And milsurp is starting to become more and more incompatible with that. So it's unfortunate, but that's the direction it goes.
Yep. I mean, that's just kind of the the way of history. We just eventually forget about it, or it's just no longer interesting anymore because technology and modernization makes everything look cool. So. Yeah.
I mean, to be fair, though, outside of the fact that we're in a panic, the gun market in America has gotten really affordable.
Mm-hmm.
There's plenty of guns to interact with on a more daily basis that are modern commercial in modern calibers. You can, outside of the panic, I understand that this has distorted the market temporarily, but outside of the panic, 9mm carbines are everywhere and super fun to play with. That would be the gun to get if you want convenience. I think if you're going into milsurp, you're looking for a heritage item. You need to start thinking about being a custodian. And that's not to say you can't have any fun with it. It's just it's time to have a slightly different mindset.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Well, man, goodness, we've been going for almost 2 hours now. And it's a little bit longer than I expected, but it has been amazing. I do know that someone had said in the chat, the longer that this live chat's going, the longer that I have to get to their new premiere or new primer episode. But
should drop in about 10 minutes or so. I don't know. May, where are you at with that? We're on a delay, so I guess she'll tell us later.
Yeah, here in probably about 15 seconds.
Yeah.
But if people don't know where you can find it, where can we find C&Rsenal?
It's unfindable.
Unfindable. Okay.
Yeah. You have to look up C&Rsenal, which is impossible to spell. I really shot myself in the foot on that. I was literally at a gun show the other day, and he's like ran out of business cards, and the guy's like, "Okay, where's your website?" And I was like, "Okay, C&Rsenal," and then they can't. So it's Charlie and Romeo Senal, which is not helpful either. So I don't know. The word anal's not even really in there, not the way you spell it. So I can't. There's no good. If you look for Othias, I'll usually come up, but you have to figure out how to spell that. So generally, if you just start looking around for T. Gevers or Lee Enfields or World War I Mausers, you should probably find us that way. Like put in primer and some World War I gun, and you'll probably find us.
Or just Othias Forbes, because you guys were featured in a Forbes article.
Yeah, we did. I think we cheated that one a little bit, but yeah, we were in Forbes.
That's pretty cool. Cool.
The gentleman who wrote that is also a helmet collector, so that's how apparently that's what got his attention.
Yep. I have the URL for the YouTube channel, the Facebook page, and your website down in the description below. So if you guys are interested in subscribing, I highly encourage you guys to do it, because there's more than enough information in one video that I know I couldn't. There's no way for me to even.
You're wasting money on sleep aids. You know what I mean? Just turn this on.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't taken a melatonin in months. So
you said your father watches the show.
Oh, absolutely, religiously.
He didn't give you any questions. He didn't give you anything for us.
No, half of the questions I asked you were from him.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. Well, tell him hi for me. Give him a hug for me.
Yeah, I'm sure. Yeah, I will do. Definitely do that. I told him after our first email, as soon as you responded back, I called him up and said, "Hey, guess who I got an email from?" So he was pretty excited about that.
Does he live near Kansas City?
He lives in Wichita, which that's my hometown. So South Central.
How far is that? I don't know.
So from Kansas City, it's 3 hours southwest. Yeah.
I was gonna say there's the World War I museum out there. I'm sure I'll be back out there someday. So.
Oh yeah. Oh no. Let us know. We'll come and meet you.
I figured it's not really a long drive for you guys.
No, it's not. Do you ever make it to the Tulsa Gun Show by chance?
So I wanted to, and the 1 year I went to do that, they canceled it at the last minute.
Because of COVID?
Yeah, but they canceled it pretty last. Like, a lot of people were furious.
Yeah.
And it takes a lot to plan for. The sad thing is with our work schedule, I have to think about 2 months ahead of time to take 2 days off.
Of course.
So that's a long haul for us, because I tend to drive because I get to take what I want and I get to buy what I want. And do what I want, like. You take your SOT buddy with you, and you just whatever you want to grab, you grab.
Yep. That's pretty awesome. The last 2 times that my dad and I, because we go down there religiously, and the last 2 times that we've been down there, we've bumped into Hickok 45, which we thought that was pretty cool. So
it's not hard. Those guys stand out.
Yeah.
John does stand up. His son does stand up comedy.
Oh yeah. I follow him on Instagram. He posts some of his stand up stuff sometimes, and it's pretty. Some of it's pretty good.
He is a sweetheart.
So I did take a picture of my dad with John and Hickok at NRA in 2019, and they are so tall that my dad looked like Frodo Baggins.
Right.
It's hilarious.
We saw him at the DC rally.
Right.
Well, I'd seen him multiple times before. I'd actually bumped into him a few times, and then I remember something came up. He sent me an email or he left me a comment about one of our videos right before he did the Guevara 98, and then maybe like 2 years later, a year and a half later, I got a email from him, and he's like, "Hey, I was talking to John, and I was talking about your show because I was watching an episode on the whatever, and I really loved it." And he's like, "We've met him at least once." And he goes, "We did?" And he's like, "Yeah, we blew him off." He's just like, and then I felt like a jerk. So he wrote me this big apology. And I was like, "You were busy. You didn't know who we were. I don't care. Like, I don't take it personally." Yeah. So it was really sweet. And then I bumped into him like a month later at the DC rally. And so I wish I could remember what I said, but he was going through the crowd and I saw him and I yelled out some insult at him. You know what I mean? And he spun around and had a smart aleck remark, and then he saw it was me and he came stomping over to say hello. Yeah. But it was funny confusing the crowd as I just like insulted Hickok and he came over with a big smile. So
so that's the way into his heart is just insulting.
They are the sweetest people that are not prepared to be celebrities. It's so funny. Like if anybody's ever, because I've had people that are like, "Yeah, I met them and they seem kind of off put," and I was like, no, they're not extroverts like I am. They're much more docile people and very friendly and very sweet. They don't know how to deal with a crowd. Like they are way more popular than they ever expected, and it's so like. And knowing that about them, it's so fun watching him try to handle a crowd because it's just like he has no idea what to do with this many people around.
Charles Sexton says that the Tulsa Gun Show is no more. They're shutting it down permanently.
Jesus.
Yeah, which doesn't surprise me one bit.
I wonder what happened there. Did they cave in economically, I guess, from that one delay? Because that would, I mean, if you think about the sort of massive momentum and you try to pump the brakes inside of 4 days on something like that, that's bad.
Yeah, I can imagine. I can imagine that.
I've made Louisville a couple times in a row. Maybe Louisville will be big.
May is saying that April 21 is the next show, so we'll see. We'll see what happens. Charles, I think, is from the Oklahoma area, so we'll definitely see what happens. So
that'd be weird.
Anyway, all right. Well, we'll get this shut down for the night. Othias, thank you so much for being on the show. Really do appreciate it. May, thank you for supporting us in the comment section. That is an awesome guest to have in the chat room, and just a wrecking ball in there. I love it. Yeah. So anyway, all right, so we'll get out of here. If you guys haven't subscribed to C&Rsenal, check them out down in the description below. You can find all their information down in there that's pertinent, and then you can branch out from there as you go. Any last words, Othias, before we get out? No.
Hope everybody's enjoying themselves. Keep a stiff upper lip, blah, blah, blah. Like,
yep.
Tell everybody no. I like telling people no.
Yep.
That's usually my thing. Yeah. People, not persons. I love persons, but people, no. An individual person, sure, okay.
Yeah, I'm the same way. Love persons, hate people. So yeah. Paul jumping in there with the $4.99. Boom. Thank you, bud. We'll be talking to you soon. Hopefully really, really soon. So thanks again, guys. Next week I have, next week I've got Clayco 47 going to jump on. We're going to be talking about AKs the entire time. So if you guys are interested in AKs, swing on by next week and we will have a great guest. Othias, thanks again. We will go ahead and shut her down as we always do. Take it easy, guys. Have a great week. Stay warm, stay safe, keep calm, and carry. We'll catch you guys next time. Bye, y'all.